All right, we're live. It's another episode of Meet Unshackled from MJ Biz 2024. We're going to talk about marijuana versus hemp. What's the difference?
Tom, hold it closer.
Hold it closer,
there you
everybody. And joining us is Dr. Lloyd Covens. And then also Max Juhasz.
There you go. Yes, somebody got it right.
That's right.
First time at BizCon.
All right. Well, hey, Dr. Lloyd, why don't you introduce yourself and explain to the people what it is you do?
Thanks a lot, Tom. I'm about a 30-year journalist. Came into cannabis reporting after doing high definition, cellular, satellite. And I thought in this business there was underreporting of regulatory, political, and those kinds of things. So that's our specialty. I got a real interesting view of how we were trying to build a legal licensed business against the quote unquote gray and black market. Well, California, for instance, it's about 28% legal. So we're about 72% gray market even now. Colorado is one of the best states. We're still 55% gray market. And in all of these states, the legalization lowers the bar for people to get arrested, whether they're selling licensed or unlicensed.
Right.
And then here comes Delta 8. And now guess what? We have 28.4 billion in national sales estimated from Delta 8, 33 billion from licensed.
Right.
And you can pretty much triple that for the illegal market.
Right.
So the financials are not going our way for the licensed business.
Agreed. As someone who does digital marketing for both hemp and cannabis companies, I can tell you this, like the hemp companies are raking it in right now just because of e-com, because they can ship out of state, because they can ship wherever they want, because, wherever they're supposed to be allowed to ship to. Versus, and I was talking, this has just been an ongoing topic. Like, what's the difference between hemp and cannabis when it comes to marketing? Well, you've got basically localized search engine optimization. You've got localized marketing versus national. I mean, I'm not going to name drop any names, but there are companies out there that are doing 10, 20, 30 million online every month in, Delta 9, THCA, THCV, you know what I mean? Everything else. And it's just because they're chopping the branch off 6 weeks before harvest, sending it to the lab, getting the COA that's saying it's, below the THC percentage, and it's legalized hemp. Meanwhile, you add fire to it, and they know what they're doing. And part of their whole marketing is like, no, this is completely legal. This is legal THC. Legal THC. That's been the new term for anything that's CBD hemp related as legal THC.
Yeah, and their lawyers probably aren't the best. And so, when you look at the Farm Bill's definition, they go, it's an unambiguous definition. It says Delta 9 THC and all derivatives. And so there's a couple of court cases that, oh, by the way, in my day job, I used to be a lawyer. And so
He still is.
I still am. I'm not going to get disbarred. But at the same time, they've read into the law the word synthetic. And so a derivative is something that is derived under the Merriam-Webster's definition of it, which means that CBD oil is the derivative of hemp. That's what was a hemp derivative. Then they did chemistry to create Delta 8 THC and all the other intoxicating cannabinoids. That has been blessed by several court cases, one on the Ninth Circuit, one on the Fourth Circuit in federal, where they read into the law, this is what they call legislating from the bench or judicial activism, the word synthetic, because they didn't do what Justice Scalia used to do. You get out the dictionary, you look at what the word means, and then you just apply the law. Now,
Plain wording.
Plain wording. But then that still would get to the THCA flower being considered hemp. But then you look at under the definition of hemp, and the way you test for it is post-decarboxylation. And so the testing aspect of it.
And in English, that means...
Right. And in English, it means... Fire, right. Yeah. And so the THCA pre-roll being hemp is the only product that I'm aware of where if you use it as directed, it's a crime, which is ridiculous. But the hemp industry is a little bit ridiculous. If you don't recall where it was back in 2019, It was about CBD.
It was all CBD, and it was all about the benefits of CBD and the health benefits of CBD. And then the FDA came in and said, you cannot make these claims, even though we have tested CBD, but it is not that specific strain. It is not that specific batch, the ones that the FDA tested. And you're not going to, you as a CBD retailer or a CBD white labeler are not going to go through the rigorous FDA testing of sending in your entire crop to get tested by the FDA.
You're talking about smokable and inhalable, and what's occurring in
versus topicals and everything else.
well, gummies are huge,
Yeah,
and beverages are going to be huge.
beverages are,
And there's two classes
scaling.
there. For instance, the under 5 milligram beverages and edibles are legal in Minnesota,
Right,
in grocery stores, etc.
everywhere.
If you have a
And-
license and you made it on a license, they have a license.
Yeah,
for
they
it.
have a license for that.
21 plus.
No.
So the hemp versus cannabis issue is a few different parts. The MSOs are going to go direct to consumer with drinks and edibles, but no smoking. And they're going to say, well, yeah, it's legal under the Farm Bill, while they attack it from their license side, if that makes sense. Where we're having an issue is if distillate comes from China and it gets
Yeah.
cooked in Texas and it becomes Delta 8, THCA, HHO, this is where the claims of purity and poisonability actually come. There's no testing there. These people
Right.
are outside of our industry. MC Nutraceuticals is here, which is great. But this show last year kept all Delta 8 out and all non-licensed cannabis, quote unquote, which I don't think is smart. In other words, consumers have found in the red states, in states like Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, North
Texas.
I live in
Carolina,
Texas. Trust
they
me.
love Delta 8.
Absolutely. Delta 8,
And
Delta
they
9,
can't buy-
THCA, everything else.
They can't buy legalized cannabis.
Right.
So it's a
Well,
dichotomy.
Texas has a medical program. It's just a terrible.
just doesn't
terrible-
really work.
Yeah, no, it's you're actually getting less. It's a joke. You know what I mean?
Sir,
It is a joke.
can we put up the slide?
You got a slides?
Texas is another interesting thing real quickly. Yesterday, their lieutenant governor floated a bill that's going to be up next month. It's very powerful, Dan Patrick. In Texas, that
Ban.
bill will ban THC.
Yeah.
All of it, Delta 8, etc. And it's interesting because of the states, Florida is approximately 12, 14 billion.
Right.
Texas is right behind it. And the people who support Texas Delta 8 are very, very strong. The military, the retirees, VFW,
Yeah.
etc. They love Delta 8.
Yeah.
And they sell it at all of their stores or their clubs.
We're probably not going to get the slide, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
it's
no
all
biggie.
good. We can do it, but that can be put in post.
But it is a rehash of.
He already showed it.
Oh, you already did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So basically, Whitney Economics has verified that we have a huge Delta 8 market.
Yeah.
And you got to understand what some in this industry want to do is cooperate on D8 and D10 products, one molecule away from Delta 9. They don't want THCA, they don't want HHO. They consider it basically, and I agree with Tom, Frankenstein synthetics that are just made up. I mean, if they could get THCP from bananas, then they would.
But I think THC from bananas would not be the exception of all derivatives, and that's the problem. Like the judges have put into the law a word that didn't exist, the word synthetic.
Right.
And so all derivatives means derivatives. So let's say you're going to make hemp protein isolate. So you would take the hemp protein from the seeds and do some chemistry on the hemp seeds until you have just the protein isolate of it. That would be a hemp derivative. Now, there's also something in hemp called nitrocellulose. And so, like, if you had the hemp stalks, you've already picked all the flowers, and you have a lot of, pretty stiff material that which the hemp herds in the stalks.
Biomass?
There's a lot, biomass, but sometimes biomass just chopped up flour.
Right.
Right, but that stuff has a lot of nitrocellulose that's in it. Now, you can do some chemistry on that nitrocellulose and turn it into nitroglycerin. So, does this mean that we can create explosives and just say it's a hemp derivative? This is legal hemp. I'm going to just start making nitroglycerin out of the hemp and selling bombs online. What's the problem? And so the problem was when the judges took the word all derivative and allowed the derivative product, being the CBD oil, to then go into chemistry. And that has allowed the floodgates to open for all these Delta 8s, the HHC, and there's many of them. They continue to synthesize new ones, and there's no regulation whatsoever, and they're all saying it's legal. And then the funny thing is, when they try to argue for THCA, they say, look at the plain meaning, the unambiguous plain meaning of the Farm Bill, and it says Delta 9 THC. But then it doesn't say synthetic. They don't want to look at the plain meaning then when they're making the IHDs. What's happening, Chris? And Pigeons 420. Shout out to the YouTubers in the audience.
Hey. You're
Appreciate you guys. Yeah.
You're bringing in a lot of good scientific piece, but I want to talk about the political piece. And this is what's really tearing the industry up, the two industries. Take Illinois.
Yeah.
We have a new bill coming in. The author wants to ban THC. Now we have an active Delta 8 business in Illinois that does not want to have that occur. And you know who's stuck in the middle are the non-intoxicants that came up through CBD, CBC, CBN, CBG.
Beneficial ones.
And they're being wiped out.
Yeah.
Because the state legislatures, like Congress, like the Farm Bill people, will not make a distinction. And my appeal to all of the pieces of this industry, the DA people, as well as the cannabis license, is we cannot go to Congress, we can't go to the USDA, we cannot go to the state legislatures with this confusing mess,
Right.
because they will ban all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we're all in
Texas.
the gray market.
Yeah.
Right, like
Texas
Texas,
is a great example.
they're planning on banning everything in Texas, and then this has happened in other states. California, where they shut it all down.
I doubt
But-
the Texas thing is going to pass, though.
Well,
you know.
what
It-
happens
it's
if the
gonna
feds?
pass.
You think so?
The
Oh, yeah.
feds have been saying they're going to get rid of the deltas and all of that, and so that we might have a whole different definition of hemp in the next year, because the Farm Bill is well overdue, and now they're putting new definitions of hemp not only in the Farm Bill but in the budget, and so the budget has to pass every year. And then the Republicans are coming; they're in the majority in both houses, and they have the executive branch. So, as somebody with a dispensary, I'm optimistic for Schedule 3, but I don't think it's a sure thing, especially after the Trump administration takes power.
Oh,
I'm going to comment about Trump. He was in favor of Amendment 3 that was failed in Florida. And he was doing this, we think, to stick it to Ron DeSantis,
Right.
who was against Amendment 3. Now, all of these wild-eyed optimists out there are saying, because of that one thing that Trump did for Florida, oh, Trump's pro-cannabis, we're going to be fine. Except not his AG. Not his FDA chair, and not his a person who's going to run the DEA. We've got major problems in DC.
Yep.
And when we come with 3 different messages, they're going to shut us all down because they're basically conservative, and this is the gateway drug.
so what you're saying is everybody needs a unified front, essentially.
I hope so.
A unified front to present this as like this industry. I can tell you this. I mean, if you go 100 years ago, I was just rewatching Boardwalk Empire, right? Which I thought was a great show. But it was all prohibition on alcohol and everything else. And it's funny because it's like literally 100 years later, we're dealing with the prohibition on cannabis versus alcohol.
Yep.
You know, and even though it's states' rights and each state, we've seen across the board here, states that go legal, look, we're bringing in more money for taxes, we're bringing in more money for education, and it's just through a plant. You know, there's so much ideology and stigma and everything else about this, but as I think hemp and cannabis need to have a unified positioning on this, especially as the descheduling, rescheduling happens, because it comes from the same plant.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think the rescheduling is how do you marry these two things?
Right.
And then again, like the Farm Bill just defines hemp like it would define corn. It doesn't define any of the downstream products. And then calling all these downstream products as hemp is a little disingenuous to what the Farm Bill is supposed to do. It's supposed to be commodities that are defined.
Yeah.
For example,
It's
if
a
you look
consumable.
right. If you look up the definition of corn under federal regs and rules, you'll find it in the Farm Bill. But if you look up the definition of corn syrup, then you're going to find it under the FDA. And the FDA has not made any rules about use of cannabinoids in the foodstuffs or in the supplies.
Well, they don't want them in.
But they not only do they not want them, they don't think they have the authority or the jurisdiction to be able to make those rules. So then it requires legislative action. And what didn't Congress pass? Congress has passed nothing about how to personally take hemp as a consumable product. They've only passed a law that says here's what hemp is as an agricultural commodity. And so it's a very fascinating thing. So with this schedule of 3, now the whole reason why hemp was so easy to pass was because it doesn't get you high. That was it. It wasn't like magically everybody came around to like marijuana and they're like, yeah, getting high, that's
Mitch
fine.
McConnell was not interested in that.
Exactly. And so that they've done that now, we are going to have to leave it there.
Yeah, and I can tell you
If
this,
you want more, we can hype later.
No,
There's
we can hype later, and
but
I can tell you
yeah.
this: like, I feel like a lot of the conversations that we have on this stage can be turned into a 1, 2, 3 hour master.
Sure. We have some lawyers at 4:30.
Right, 4:30.
Okay,
Thomas.
so this
and
Hey,
Bob
there. Tell the people.
come back later.
4:35, we have Thomas, Bob Hoban, and a very strict TACA attorney, Rod Kite, who is the most smart about the D8 and synthetics, and then the chairman of NCIA National Cannabis Association, Aaron Smith. So that'll be a rocking panel.
Awesome.
And
Where at?
I believe
Where should
right down the street.
Right down the street.
We believe in our solution is you take the letters THC and you take them off all products. And
Okay.
then consumers are not looking for D8 or anything else because all of the mad marketers, just like THC. Well, it is THC. I don't believe that those 3 letters are getting well served.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
All right, to be continued then, guys.
That's right. This was another.
This is another
example.
episode of Vito and Chuckles at FJ BizCon 2024 here at the Manufacturers Pavilion.
That's right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you. All right.